It's a sad day today because I woke up this morning and heard that Terry Wogan had died after 50 years of broadcasting. A 50-year-long broadcasting career. I mean, can we just take a moment to kind of realise how incredible that is? 50 years of just amazing standard of broadcasting. So he died at 77 years old after a short battle with cancer, and he is such an influence on me. I think Terry Wogan is definitely one of the people that influenced me into pursuing a kind of broadcasting career, and one of the big things that he actually really inspired me on was his Eurovision commentary, which was always hilarious. He used to do it when I was a kid, and I've watched Eurovision every single year, and I just remember it being such a highlight of my calendar. Terry Wogan commenting on Eurovision was just so incredibly funny, and it was just ridiculously genuine and so sarcastic, didn't take things too seriously, and that really set the foundation for the kind of broadcasting that I wanted to do for all my kind of radio shows and vlogs. That is where it all stems from. Terry Wogan on Eurovision, me watching that at such a young age and thinking, this is so funny without even trying, and that's just the kind of man that he was. Another thing that was also a massive influence for me was his Children in Need efforts. Every single year he was on Children in Need since it began, except for the last year, and he would just be on for such a ridiculous amount of time. He used to present for something like 10 hours straight, and it's just ridiculous and so impressive, and he never flagged. And again, just like in Eurovision, it was that same standard of kind of sarcastic and not too serious, but so funny and kind of at times walking the line, and that was just such a massive influence for me. And I genuinely don't know what I would be trying to pursue or what I would be trying to do if I didn't have that influence. So what would I have decided to do? It's because he was there from such a young age for me. He's been broadcasting way before I was born, and he's so established from the minute I was born. And it's just because I was always surrounded by his kind of commentary on BBC things that it kind of influenced me from such a young age. So Terry Wogan's, it's such a great loss. So I was extremely lucky in getting to meet Sir Terry Wogan. It was about a year ago, and I don't really tell this story very often because it's so kind of personal to me and so special that I don't really go shouting about it. But I feel like now is the time to share it with people. So I met the legend once. I was emailing his production team for his Radio 2 weekend show. I was emailing them for months saying, please let me come and shadow. And at the time I worked in the building next to the Radio 2 studios, so my case was kind of like, I already work here, I just need to come next door, just let me in and let me watch the show. So I didn't even really work with Sir Terry. I sat in the corner quietly and tried to be invisible and just absorbed the kind of air of him broadcasting and tried to get just a little tiny bit of his greatness. And it was genuinely, I've shadowed a lot of radio and I've been a part of a fair few broadcasts, and that is, I can genuinely pinpoint that as the one standout highlight moment. So I went into Radio 2 on a Sunday morning. So his studio was in two parts. There was the studio, which Terry sat in and broadcast from, and then there was the gallery where the production team sat. And I was in the gallery, and there's kind of a glass screen and there's a talkback. So I was kind of so close to Sir Terry Wogan, but never actually in the same room. So I sat there for a couple of hours, just sat quietly in the corner and just watched. And to have that privilege of seeing Sir Terry Wogan broadcast and to see what he's like off the mic and off air and off as a person was just so special to me, and I'm so fortunate. A lot of the time people say don't meet your heroes, they're nothing like what they are on the TV, it'll ruin your illusion of them, and I was kind of worried that, oh no, what if I meet Sir Terry Wogan and we don't really get on? And he was, I can genuinely say, and I've said this since the day it happened, and everyone that I've told about this, genuinely exactly the same. Exactly the same on air and off air. He would put a song on, he'd pull the fader down, and then he'd be on the talk back to the producer saying some sort of sarcastic comment, or they'd be playing Guess the Year of the song, and then they'd be googling it and going, I was right. It was just so relaxed and so natural and so genuine and effortless, just like his broadcasting. He was genuinely 100% exactly the same on air and off air, and I was so happy. So absolute gent on air, absolute gent off air. The show comes to an end, and this whole time I've been kind of sat in the gallery next to this lady who's just been quietly sat there reading the newspaper, and I was kind of thinking, who is she? Who is she? What is she doing here? And at the end of the programme, so Terry gets up from his broadcasting seat, comes through the door into the gallery, and the lady stands up and takes her newspaper, and it was his wife. And it was just so adorable. He takes his wife into the radio studio on a Sunday morning, and she sits there and reads the paper, listens to his broadcast, and then I heard them chatting about going into Soho for coffee after the show, and it was just so adorable. And I've never been jealous of a couple before, but that is just the dream, isn't it? That is the dream. Oh, and it was just too much for me. So just as Sir Terry and his wife are about to leave arm in arm, he comes over to me and he starts talking to me, and I'm just like, why are you wasting your time? So he walks over to me and I kind of shrink back in my chair and I'm like, oh God, melting under the greatness of Sir Terry Wogan. It was just, I will never forget that moment. So he comes up to me and he says, oh, I saw you through the glass, you were just sat there quietly. He was like, oh, what's your name? What are you doing here? And I was like, oh my God, hi Sir Terry Wogan. And he like shook my hand and I was like, never washing this again. So I said, my name's Rob and I'm shadowing your show. I'm here to learn the craft, is what I said. It's such a stupidly nerdy answer, but I was so ridiculously kind of just overwhelmed. And he just laughed so loud, his kind of genuine hearty laugh. He laughed so loud and he said, huh, craft, don't flatter me. And then he said, you know, it was nice to meet you, and then said goodbye to his production team and went off into Soho for his coffee with his wife. And it was just the greatest day of my life, and I feel like that is the best obituary that I can give to Sir Terry Wogan. I mean, everyone can talk about how great his broadcasting is and how much of a legend he is, but I have that little story, and I feel like that is the best tribute I can do to Sir Terry Wogan. So a very sad day, but we're very lucky to have lived in a time with such a legend, and I can officially say, and legitimately say, such an amazingly nice guy. So a sad day, but also a great celebration of his life. So there you go, that's my story of Sir Terry Wogan. If you've got any stories, or if you've met him, or maybe just you want to say how much of a legend he is, leave a comment below, because it'd be nice for me to read them as well. Because I think a lot of people, because he spanned and broadcast so many different generations, he had a kind of different influence on people. So I was never really a big radio listener when he was really focusing on his radio and doing, you know, one of the most popular breakfast shows in history in the world. I never really got captured by that because I was a little bit too young to be listening to Radio 2 at the time. So he kind of captured me through the Children in Need and the Eurovision. So it'd be interesting to see different people through different generations, how they've influenced him. So do leave a comment below just about how much of a legend he is. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my little story about Terry Wogan.